I never imagined that shame could come dressed up in silk and poured into a crystal glass of champagne. Yet there I was, parked in the third row at my little sister's wedding, wearing the only formal dress I owned. I tried hard to disappear into a sea of people who looked like they'd all just stepped out of a magazine, too polished, too perfect to be real. My son, Emery, was sitting right next to me, his legs swinging under the table in that too-small suit I managed to buy only by stretching 2 whole paychecks. He looked so proud to be sitting there. He honestly thought this day would make us feel like we belonged again, like maybe we were part of the family for real this time. I guess a part of me wanted to believe that, too. Celeste, my sister, moved through the day like she was born for it, like a scene straight out of a movie. That was always her way. She had this natural glow about her, stunning, full of charm, and impossible not to admire. Especially if you were our mother. Celeste was the one people praised. I was the one they measured her against. She got the spotlight, and I learned how to survive in the dark. Still, I showed up. I smiled when I was supposed to. I clapped when they kissed. I kept my voice even when folks leaned over and asked, "Wait, you're the older sister? You don't look like someone with an 8-year-old." Then came the toasts. The groom's best friend went first, shared a few safe, half-funny stories that got polite chuckles from the crowd. Then it was Celeste's turn. I figured she'd say something sweet, maybe talk about love, or growing up with me, or those childhood memories we never quite shared evenly. I even lifted my glass, thinking she might surprise me with something tender. I should have known better. She raised her glass, this delicate, glittering flute, and smiled out across the room like a queen addressing her court. "I just want to thank everyone for coming," she started, practically glowing. "It means so much to have you all here." Then she said, "And of course, I want to take a moment to say something about my big sister, Mira." I turned toward Emery and gave him a little smile. He looked up at me, eyes shining, ready for something nice. For a second, I actually believed she was about to say something kind. Then Celeste continued, "Myra's been such a role model." My chest swelled, right up until she added, "A single mom. Strong, independent, and clearly not wanted by anyone else." The room exploded in laughter. My stomach turned inside out. At first, I thought I must have misheard. But there she was, beaming like she'd just delivered the punchline of the century. Some folks looked puzzled, but most leaned into the laughter, raising their glasses like it was all just playful fun. I didn't know where to look. My ears were ringing with my own heartbeat. Then Emery gave my sleeve a little tug and whispered, "Mama, why'd she say that about you?" Before I could think of what to say, my mother chimed in from across the room, voice sharp and cheerful. "She's used goods, but hey, she still looks decent for her age." That laugh was different. Harsher. The kind that slices through skin. The kind that tells you you're no longer seen as a guest or even family, but more like a punchline or worse, a burden. I froze. I couldn't get a breath in. My cheeks were on fire, but I wouldn't let the tears come, not in front of Emery, not in front of them. Under the table, I clenched my napkin so tightly it felt like a lifeline. I scanned the room, desperate for just one pair of eyes that might offer a little humanity, maybe even a shred of kindness. My grandfather was focused on his plate. My cousin smirked down at her phone. Even my uncle, the one who used to say I reminded him of my dad, didn't look up. Emery looked completely thrown off, his little eyebrows knit tight, not sure what just happened, but feeling the weight of it anyway. And that's what broke me. Not the words. Not the laughter. Not even the embarrassment. It was watching my boy witness it all, watching him try to figure out why the woman who kissed his skinned knees and helped him finish his homework was suddenly the butt of the joke. I wanted to stand up and leave. I wanted to grab Emery's hand, walk out the door, and never look back. But something stopped me. I wanted to speak up. I wanted to defend myself, tell them they didn't know the half of what I'd endured, what I'd clawed my way through. But my throat was dry as sand. My legs were shaking so bad I could barely feel them. And then, before I could do a thing, I heard a chair scrape back. Rowan, the groom, Celeste's polished and perfect fiancé, rose to his feet, slow and deliberate. He didn't laugh. He didn't even glance at Celeste. He didn't scan the crowd. He looked straight at me, and something in his expression made the whole room go still. In that instant, I knew something was about to shift. Not a rescue, not a scene. A reckoning. People love to say the older sibling leads the way, that they set the example. But in our family, I wasn't a role model. I was a warning. My name's Mira. I'm 34. I'm a single mom. I'm the one they call the black sheep. Emery and I live in a modest 2-bedroom apartment tucked on the edge of town. He's 8 years old, my pride and joy, and the only reason I keep walking back into rooms that once made me feel invisible. I juggle 2 jobs, early mornings brewing coffee at a cafe, and late nights manning the front desk at a budget hotel. No, it ain't glamorous. But it's mine. Every Saturday, I make Emery pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. I've patched more holes in his jeans than I can count. And in his eyes, I'm still a superhero. That's enough to keep me going. But in my family, being a single mother meant I was the disappointment, the failure. My mother, Marion, never let me forget it, not during holidays, not ever. She's big on appearances. That's why she calls Celeste's wedding a fresh start for the family name. Celeste is 5 years younger than me. Always has been the picture of perfection, beautiful, successful, and somehow made it all look effortless, even when everything was handed to her. She's Mom's pride and joy. If Celeste so much as sneezed, Mom would rush over with a silk handkerchief. Me? If I caught the flu, she told me to pop a vitamin and quit acting weak. Everything changed when I got pregnant with Emery. I was 25, head over heels in love with a man who swore he'd never leave. By the 5th month, he was gone, no call, no note, nothing. My family didn't ask why. They didn't offer a hand. They just gave me silence, a few judgmental glances, and a whole lot of "I told you so." But I had Emery, and the moment I held him in my arms for the very first time, every harsh thing they'd ever said about me faded into background noise. Still, somewhere deep down, I kept hoping they'd come around, see me not just as a single mom, but as someone worth loving. Maybe that's why, when Vivian's wedding invite showed up, I said yes. Even though I wasn't in the bridal party. Even though they spelled my name wrong on the RSVP card. Even though I had to rent a dress I couldn't afford and fix my own hair in the mirror of a cramped bathroom while Emery, standing in his tiny tie, practiced his best smile. I told myself it might be a turning point, a quiet peace offering from the family. Maybe they were ready to close the distance. The venue was stunning, white roses everywhere, gold trim on the dinner plates, and a string quartet playing softly in the background. Vivian looked like she'd stepped out of a wedding catalog. She was glowing, soaking up every compliment, every photo like it was sunlight. But when she walked past me, her smile slipped. "You made it," she said, as if she hadn't actually expected I would. She glanced at Emery and added, "He's getting big." That was it, no hug, no warmth, just a throwaway comment before she drifted back into the spotlight. Marion didn't say a word to me, didn't even give me a nod. She walked by like I was part of the catering staff. But Emery was beaming. He said the chandelier looked like a spaceship. He leaned in and whispered that Vivian looked like a princess. And watching how happy he was just to be part of it all made me decide to stick around for the reception. Even though I felt that all too familiar sting in my chest, the one that reminded me I didn't quite belong. We found our table, number 9, tucked in the back, near the bathrooms. I couldn't help but chuckle. Seemed fitting. We picked at our salads. Emery got chocolate mousse on his little tie, and I helped him clean it off the best I could. I avoided looking at my mom and tried to tune out the whispers whenever I heard my name float across the room over the clink of glassware. Then the speeches began, and I realized this night wasn't going to be about forgiveness or coming together. It was going to be another stage for Vivian to shine, and I was about to be her punchline. It started like most wedding speeches do, warm and sugary, a little too rehearsed. Vivian stood tall, holding a champagne flute like she was modeling it, her dress catching the lights just right. The room fell quiet. She smiled, letting the silence stretch, just long enough to pull everyone in. "I want to thank all of you for being here," she said sweetly. "This is the happiest day of my life, and I'm surrounded by the people who mean the most to me." I sat there at the back table, trying to convince myself she meant me, too. Emery was next to me, legs swinging under the chair, completely enchanted by the whole thing. Vivian kept going, talking about Rowan, her new husband, and about how love is all about timing and fate. I let myself relax just a little. Maybe, just maybe, this speech wouldn't turn into something ugly. But then, her tone shifted. And of course, she said with a smirk, I want to give a shout out to my big sister, Mira. You've always been such a strong example. The spotlight moved. I felt heads turning my way. I straightened up and gave a polite smile. Vivian kept going, voice sweet but sharp. She's the bravest woman I know. Raised a child all by herself. No husband, no partner, she added, just her, and whoever she could convince to babysit. Laughter rippled through the room. My stomach clenched. But seriously, she went on, it's amazing how she's managed. A single mom, unwanted, but still showing up. More laughter. This time it was louder, rawer, like folks had stopped pretending to be polite. I felt the air leave my lungs. My face burned. My fingers clutched the napkin in my lap, frozen. I glanced at Emery. He was frowning, trying to make sense of why everyone was laughing at me. And then the worst part came. My mother, Marion, let out the loudest laugh of all. She leaned toward the people at her table and said, just loud enough for others to hear, she's used goods, but she still polishes up nice. A fresh round of laughter followed. No attempt to muffle it. It hit me like a slap, but no one laid a hand on me. They just laughed, like it was okay, like it was normal to humiliate a woman who'd spent nearly 10 years doing her best to raise her son with love and dignity. Like being alone made me less than. I looked at Emery. His smile was gone. He leaned close and whispered, why did she say that? What does it mean? I wanted to answer him, I really did, but I couldn't find the words. I couldn't protect him from this. I couldn't shield him from how our own family really saw me. And that kind of pain? It doesn't hide easily. My chest tightened. My eyes scanned the room for a way out, or maybe for anyone who might stand up and say something. But no one did. Some folks looked uncomfortable, sure, but they just stared down at their plates or their phones. Even Grandpa Walter, who used to call me his little lion when I was a kid, wouldn't meet my eyes. He was there, but in that moment, he wasn't with me. I was alone. Again. Now, I could have taken it if it were just about me. I've been swallowing that kind of treatment for years. I could have smiled, grabbed Emery's hand, and walked out with my head held high. But seeing that confused look on my boy's face, seeing him try to figure out why folks were laughing at his mom like that, something broke open in me. I stood up. Not because I had something to say. Not because I wanted to cause a scene. I just needed to get out of there. I needed air, needed to breathe without choking on the shame they'd just poured on me. My hands were shaking as I pushed my chair back. And just when I thought I could slip away quietly, another chair scraped back from the head table. Rowan, Vivian's brand new husband, stood up. He looked pale, like all the color had drained right out of him. His jaw was tight. No hesitation. He just reached over and took the microphone from Vivian's hand without even asking. The room froze. It was like someone hit a mute button. No more laughing, no whispering behind napkins, just this cold, heavy stillness. And I knew. Whatever was about to happen wasn't part of the script. Rowan stood there with one hand braced on the table and the other gripping the mic like it weighed a ton. But his eyes? They were locked on me. Not Vivian. Not Marion. Not the crowd that had just laughed at me and my son. Me. I half expected him to smooth things over, maybe crack a little joke, say something light to ease the tension. That's how folks in my family usually handle things, sweep it under the rug, call it humor, chalk it up to just teasing. Keep the mask on. But Rowan didn't smile. He didn't even blink. His face was set, like stone, something sharp behind it. Not just anger, but disappointment. Maybe even disgust. I reached for Emery's hand and slid in my chair, ready to leave with whatever dignity I had left. I'd done it before. I could do it again. No tears. No drama. Just walk out. Then I heard Rowan's voice, low, steady, clear. Alara, don't go. Everything stopped again. All heads turned his way. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Vivian went stiff. Marion narrowed her eyes. The DJ's hand hovered over the soundboard, but didn't press anything when Rowan raised his. He didn't look at anyone else but me. I can't pretend I'm okay with what just happened, he said. And I won't stand up here and let that kind of cruelty pass as a joke. Dead silence. Not even a fork tapping a plate. Just his voice cutting through the thick air. Rowan stepped out from behind the table and walked slowly toward me. Not in a rush. Like he was pushing through something heavy just to get there. He stopped at our table, me, Emery, 2 forgotten plates of salad, and turned toward the guests. I've heard a lot about family this year, he said. About keeping up appearances, about loyalty and tradition. But what I just saw, that wasn't family. That was cruelty dressed up as celebration. You could feel the discomfort ripple through the crowd. Some folks shifted in their seats. Some gave quick glances toward Marion. Most just stared at the tablecloths like the pattern might change. Then Rowan turned to Vivian. And his voice didn't flinch. You mocked your sister. For being a single mom. For raising a child on her own. And you did it in front of her son. You made him sit here and watch you turn her life into a joke. Vivian's mouth opened, but nothing came out. She didn't ask for attention. She didn't come here to steal your spotlight. She showed up, sat in the back, smiled, and brought her child to celebrate your big day. And you turned that into a punchline. I'd never seen Vivian look small until then. Her sparkle dimmed. Her posture slumped. And Rowan kept going. Alara didn't stand up here and beg for sympathy. She doesn't need a mic. She's lived her life with more strength and grace than most of us could manage. He paused, looked around the room one more time. If marrying into this family means accepting cruelty as tradition, if silence is the cost of belonging here, then I need to rethink what kind of man I want to be. A sharp gasp cut through the room. Someone whispered, "Is this really happening?" A fork clattered against a plate. Emery squeezed my hand, wide-eyed, confused, unsure. I hadn't come to that wedding expecting kindness. I came to survive it. But to be defended like that, publicly, clearly, with no hesitation, I didn't know what to do with it. Rowan knelt slightly, meeting Emery's eyes. Your mom's the strongest person in this room. Don't forget that. Then he stood up, turned to the crowd, and said, I think I've seen enough. He laid the mic down gently, didn't spare Vivian a second glance, and walked straight out the door. I just stood there, frozen, still holding Emery's hand. The music didn't start back up. No one cheered. The silence was deafening, like someone had sucked all the air out of the place. The fairy tale was broken. But for the first time in years, I wasn't the one left in pieces. The second that door closed behind Rowan, something shifted. The room felt stunned. Nobody moved. No one clapped. Just this hollow hum from the AC and the faint sound of a spoon hitting glass somewhere in the back. Vivian stood there, still at the head table, looking shell-shocked. Her shoulders sagged, her eyes scanning the room like she was trying to piece it all back together. But the warmth in the room was gone. The magic, whatever fake charm they'd conjured, had vanished. People stared at her now, but not with admiration. There was judgment in their eyes. Some looked shocked, some embarrassed. And a few looked angry. But not at Rowan. At her. Marion was the first to break the silence. She jumped up from her chair, the legs screeching against the floor. What an ungrateful boy, she snapped. He humiliated you in front of everyone. Just like your sister, selfish. But her voice didn't carry the way it used to. That invisible grip she had on everyone? Gone. Her words dropped into the room like stones into a pond. No ripple. No reaction. And for once, I didn't flinch under her voice. I didn't lower my eyes. I didn't shrink. I turned to Emery, who looked up at me like he wasn't sure what to do next. Are we leaving? He asked softly. Yeah, baby, I said, smoothing his hair back. We're going home. I stood tall, took his hand, and started toward the exit. People moved aside as we passed, some with their heads down, others watching like they wanted to say something but didn't know how. Halfway to the door, someone called my name. Alara. I turned. It was Grandpa Walter. His face was pale, eyes rimmed red. He stood slowly and walked toward me. I'm sorry, he said, voice trembling. I should have stopped it. Years ago. I nodded. I didn't trust myself to say anything. I didn't hate him. I knew what silence costs people. I'd lived it too long to hold it against him now. But I wasn't carrying it anymore. That weight wasn't mine to bear. Outside, the air was cool and clean. Emery's hand was warm in mine. Is the wedding over? He asked, peering up at me. I smiled. Yeah, I said. I think it ended exactly how it needed to. We drove home without saying a word. No radio, no chatter, just the quiet hum of the tires on pavement and the soft, steady rhythm of Emery's fingers tapping the armrest beside him. When we got home, I tucked him into bed, kissed his forehead, and stood in the doorway for a while, just watching him breathe. He didn't ask me any questions. He didn't have to. Some things speak louder in silence. The next morning, I woke up to a phone screen full of missed calls, unknown numbers, cousins I hadn't heard from in years, even a few guests whose names I barely remembered. I didn't answer a single one. My phone buzzed again. A text from a friend who had been at the wedding. Someone recorded Rowan's speech. It's on Facebook. Over 50,000 views already. You need to read the comments. People are standing up for you. I hesitated, then opened the video. There it was, Rowan's voice, calm and steady, cutting through that wedding hall like a blade. And there I was too, frozen on screen, holding Emery's hand like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. The comments came in waves. This man is a hero. She didn't deserve that. I'm crying watching this. Every single mom just got a little bit of justice. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just felt still. Like some knot deep inside me had quietly loosened after being twisted tight for too many years. Vivian tried to rewrite the story that week. Claimed Rowan overreacted, said it was just a harmless joke that people needed to lighten up. But it was too late. The truth had already landed, and nobody was laughing anymore. A few days later, a small bouquet of wildflowers showed up at my door. No return address. Just a card tucked into the stems with 5 handwritten words. To the lioness. I didn't need a signature. I knew exactly who it was from. The wedding didn't happen, but something bigger did. For once, I wasn't the one carrying the shame. I wasn't the one expected to apologize, to smooth it over, to take it on the chin and smile through it. I walked out of that reception hall with my son's hand in mine, my dignity intact, and my head held high. And out there, somewhere between a broken engagement and a viral video, someone stood up and reminded a room full of people, and maybe a whole corner of the internet, what strength really looks like. It's been 6 months since the wedding that wasn't. Vivian and Rowan quietly called the whole thing off. No big announcement. No dramatic Instagram post. Just a slow, silent undoing of what was supposed to be her picture-perfect day. Vivian drifted back into her world like nothing ever happened. The photos from that night vanished from her social media. Not a word to me. I didn't really expect one. Marian called me once. Not to apologize, of course not, but to say I'd embarrass the family by not laughing along. By not playing my role. I let her talk for 30 seconds. Then I told her something I never thought I'd have the guts to say. I'm not your scapegoat anymore. And I hung up. No yelling. No drama. Just done. Simple. Clean. Final. After everything, I came to understand something important. I didn't need a grand apology from my family. I didn't need some dramatic moment where they suddenly saw my worth. I just had to stop waiting on their permission to see it for myself. Life didn't flip into some fairy tale after that night. I still work long hours. I still make 2 dinners. Sometimes Emery wants pancakes. I want something green and halfway healthy. But there's a shift in me now. I carry myself differently. I'm not walking through life hunched under years of silent shame anymore. I don't shrink into the background. And Emery, he's different too. He's asking more questions these days. Thoughtful ones. He wants to know why people hurt each other. Why some stay quiet. Why others speak up. He talks about Rowan like he's one of his superheroes. Sometimes I catch him lining up his action figures and giving little speeches, standing up for the underdog. I watch him, and I know in my bones that what he witnessed that night will help shape the kind of man he grows into, strong, kind, and brave enough to say something when it counts. One night, while we were brushing our teeth, Emery looked at me through the mirror and asked, "Mom, are you still sad about what Aunt Vivian said?" I paused. Then I said, "Not anymore." "Why?" He shrugged, a streak of toothpaste on his chin. "Because I think you won. Even though it wasn't a fight." That stayed with me. Because he was right. I didn't yell. I didn't clap back with insults. I didn't cry in front of a crowd or demand an apology. I just stood up, took my son's hand, and walked away. And then someone else, someone no one expected, decided that silence wasn't good enough anymore. Rowan didn't just speak up. He reminded that entire room what love really looks like. Not the kind that wears a tuxedo or walks down an aisle. The kind that sees cruelty and says, "No, not today." If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: being alone doesn't mean you're unworthy. Being kind isn't weakness. And once you reclaim your dignity, nobody can take it from you again. So no, I didn't dance at my sister's wedding. I didn't toast or toss a bouquet or cry happy tears under fairy lights. But I walked out of that room with something more lasting than approval. I walked out with my son beside me, my head high, and a calm certainty deep in my chest that I don't owe anyone an explanation anymore. That was the ending nobody saw coming. And exactly the one I deserved. If this story moved you, if you've ever been made to feel small or silenced by the very people who should have stood beside you, just know, your voice matters. Your dignity matters. You are not alone. If you found strength in these words, take a second to like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and leave a comment below. Tell me, was there ever a moment someone stood up for you? Or a time when you finally stood up for yourself? And if you want more true stories that cut deep, break patterns, and remind us what it really means to be human, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Thanks for being here. And remember, your story is powerful, even if no one claps when you tell it.